Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, and for the first time in a long time, not only do I have a guest co-host, but it's a returning guest co-host who hasn't been here in, I don't remember the last thing we talked about, but it was a long time ago.
That was a ways back.
Here's Brian Toney.
Woo! What's up, guys?
We're a bit of... see? We're a little bit loopy because it's been quite a day for both of us. We won't go into details, but then we had some technical issues. We had to go on a little road trip, but anyway, we're here now.
Yep, Natick is lovely this time of year.
Yeah, we're here for everybody, and here we go.
We're here for you guys.
This is a special Halloween-themed episode, of course, being so close to Halloween. But before we really delve into everything, I just want to mention again that, yes, the episode schedule release is a little bit wonky because I am so busy on the weekends with all my witch finding. As the official, licensed witch finder general of Salem, Massachusetts.
I've seen it. I saw his license. I bid it. It's real.
Yep. And it keeps me super, super busy and very tired when I come home. It's very tiring work.
I believe you.
And so I have to shift to doing the podcast during the weekdays, which can also be tricky because I work 2 or 3 jobs a week sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So I got to fit them in when I can. So I do apologize that they're a little bit mixed up, but I'm thankful that no one's really lodged any complaints so far, and I hope that understanding continues.
Yeah. And we're back with our Halloween episode. You guys know how I love those.
What's that mean? You don't?
No, I do. I actually do.
Oh. All right.
I'm pretty sure I've been on a couple of those.
Yeah.
Halloween-themed episodes.
So before we dive in, of course, I want to remind everyone, go to the website, spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. They both take you to the same place. And that is the show's blog page. Listen, we're going to do this. We're going to get through this, Brian.
I can't wait.
And you can listen to every episode there and sometimes find pictures, although there won't really be too many pictures from tonight's episode because they'd be pretty gruesome.
Ooh.
And, you know, I'm not really into posting
gore.
Too much gruesome stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight is gore and its place in Halloween and Halloween decorations.
Love it.
But going back to the website, of course, you can also find our social media at Spooky Ass Shit on both Instagram and Twitter. And then, of course, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. And I do contests. I just did 2 giveaways, actually, on the Facebook page.
What'd you give away?
Care packages from Salem. So there's some fun little... You know, I'm not saying it's anything super amazing, but just fun little trinkets from Salem. And, you know, these people that won, now they can lie to their friends and say, oh, I took a trip to Salem and here's everything that I found and got, and, you know, be the coolest kid in town.
I love that that's like a better story. It's not that I won something. It's like, no, I totally been to Salem, Massachusetts. Yes. Brag. Yep, I was there.
Yeah, met the witch finder.
Well, actually, that does make sense. A little corporate synergy there.
Yeah.
It's good.
So, anyway, that's what I've been up to and how I've been dealing with things over on the Facebook. But, Brian.
Yep.
Focus. Tonight.
You just called it the Facebook and it made me giggle.
Well, that was on purpose.
I know.
Okay. The episode tonight is about Halloween decorations. First and foremost, that's what I want to talk about.
Great.
So, when I was a kid, it wasn't super common that people would decorate their lawns for Halloween around my neck of the woods. There was always a few people who did.
Right.
And I looked forward to those.
Sure.
All the time.
We told tales of their spooky yards, but yeah, there were like a couple per town probably.
Yeah. And they might do something like they might have some tombstones set up.
Mm-hmm.
They might have some ghost hanging from a tree.
Coffin or 2.
Yeah, if they were real fancy, they might have like a mannequin in a Jason mask or something like that. That'd be if they're like real fancy.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw a couple of those, but not super common. I also remember, like, it was so simple. Like when I think the point that I'm going to make is that people take things too far these days. That's what I'm getting around to.
Okay.
And I want to go back into my childhood mind and remember what Halloween was like at that point. And a good example of this was my across the street neighbor. She had a daughter my age. She was born 2 days after me. We grew up together. We were like homies. We still chat once in a great while. You've met her actually because she did the Warrior Dash with us once upon a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, her name's Kim. What's up, Kim?
Hey, Kim.
She probably won't listen to this.
These were years ago.
Yeah. But anyway, she's still doing obstacle race. She does them all the time. But anyway. Yeah, so she lived across the street. We grew up together, best buds. And her mom, they had like one of those old fashioned like street light things in their yard. Not like like a light in their yard. I kind of know what you mean. Like a lamppost.
Okay, yeah.
A lamppost. And she would put a witch's mask over the lamppost with like a cape or whatever.
Yeah.
So that it looked like there was a witch with glowing eyes.
Oh, that's fun.
And it was so simple. And even though I knew exactly what it was, I still, in the back of my mind, and I know that Kim felt the same way, was like, yeah, I know it's like a mask and it's just this thing on a light pole, but it might come to life.
What if it's something more?
Yeah, it might come to life at night, and adults don't understand. And I could see it from my bedroom window, and I'd be like, don't look out at the witch.
No, I think everybody had those kind of thoughts when they were kids.
That's how simple it was. Actually, I just remembered now, too. There was a place right in downtown Framingham, actually, called Bop City Comics. Mm-hmm. It was a comic book store. But they had a window that faced out downtown. And they put like a full-size Frankenstein in the window.
Yeah.
And I both loved it and feared it. But that was like really intense. Like I'd get excited for it and then we'd drive by and see it or go into the store and see it. And I'd be like, oh man, that's him. That's that dude.
It sure is. He's famous. Frankenstein's monster.
Yep. That's my
Got the nomenclature.
Going back to my Basil Gogos episode. That's my framed, signed Basil Gogos print.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I had it framed since last episode. Anyway. I'm just trying to paint the mood here.
Yeah.
So my point is, when you decorate for Halloween, something as simple as that, something as simple as putting a witch mask, and this I will put a picture of online because we have a picture of like the neighborhood kids dressed up standing in front of this lamppost with the witch mask on.
That specific one.
Yeah.
That's neat.
But I also remember even taking that picture, like looking over our shoulders and being like, that witch might like get us now.
Yeah.
Like we're all here. Like all her targets are right here.
Yeah.
This would be the perfect time. Like we were like Stranger Things long before.
Sure. Well, so
except that it wasn't real. But
well, I'm sure you'll get to this.
We had the fear.
So your thesis is that people are doing much more overt things these days?
Yes. Well, here's the thing. It's been on the news. There was just here in Massachusetts, there was a man who faced a backlash because he had a hanging scene in his yard, and
that's aggressive.
Like, the legs moved and everything, and the neighborhood was like, hey, you should take this down. And he was like, hey, I don't need to do that because like I built this with my daughter to help her get over her fears of things and also like show her how animatronics worked. I'm paraphrasing this whole story.
The plot thickens.
Yeah. But that was his like response basically. And I don't remember if he ended up taking it down or not. I did read the article, but briefly as I was like doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
But it just reminded me because gore is something that wasn't really a part of the Halloween decorations when I was a kid. There was a place for it because, of course, like I was a kid in the 80s.
Yeah.
And slasher films were big business during that time. That was the heyday of slasher films. So I'm not saying that it had nothing to do with it, but you didn't walk around and see like corpses in people's yard. You'd see like zombies and stuff maybe, but not like severed limbs and like a butcher and like blood and guts all over the place.
Maybe. I mean, you're probably right. At the same time, if if those people had access to like the kind of technology, and if it was as easy as
I'm
it
not
might be
saying
today,
that,
you don't think
yeah.
they would have done that?
No, I think they would have. I'm not saying that people weren't as fucked up back then.
Fair enough.
That's not my
All right.
that's not my statement. I'm just saying we don't need to go that far with it. You know? And also I do think it is a bit much. I know there's people out there that are going to disagree, but when you put things, it's different. Like, it's one thing if you have a haunted house.
Yeah.
People are going to a haunted house expecting to be scared and maybe shocked by what they see. As you walk down your neighborhood,
yeah,
I think you can be a little bit more tactful.
I suppose so. It's a tough thing to parse, though, because as long as you're not actually doing anything illegal, maybe that's the price of having something kind of gross and off-putting that you don't like, is that you find out what people in your neighborhood are secretly twisted, and it only comes out about a month a year. I don't know. I guess I can't make a great case for a reason people shouldn't have these things out, as long as they're not insanely offensive to the point of being obscene.
Yeah, well, there have been cases where people have, really been brought to task for their decorations and that kind of thing. But I think there are people out there that just want to shock people.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I don't. It doesn't matter what some guy on a podcast says; they're still going to do it.
Sure.
But I guess that would be my, like, if you're in it for the real, what I would consider the real spirit of Halloween, suggested horror and violence is usually better than blatant, like treating a splatter film in your yard.
Yeah.
Like, have Freddy Krueger peeking out from the bushes. That is terrifying.
Not openly disemboweling someone on the front lawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's Poltergeist versus Hostel. It's like there's different kinds of suggestion and horror. I don't particularly enjoy really gory horror, but I don't think that Hostel and Poltergeist are even in the same genre of movie. I think that's completely different. Like, I don't think that you have to appreciate overt and really realistic like human anatomy being torn apart to say that you're a fan of horror. So I think those are two very different sides of possibly the same coin.
Yeah. I mean, I can be down for all of it. Like, I can handle slasher movies and even what they might call torture porn. They usually don't tend to be my favorite movies. I like possessed children myself.
We know.
Yeah.
We know.
But Exorcist,
yeah,
Omen, Rosemary's Baby, I like those ones. But yeah, I mean, I think Halloween is for everybody, right? But that you have to kind of keep that in mind. And I would lean more towards, as far as what you're going to display out to the neighborhood, whatever you do in your house, or if you have a haunted house or something like that, that is where you let your creativity run wild. And if that's where you want to shock people, then, go for it. But what you're going to put in your yard, I would say, let's keep it, maybe PG-13. And hint at things, like more spooky than outright scary. That would be my personal opinion.
We were all wondering where you would come down on the side of spooky.
People,
it's right in the name.
People have been debating it and, talking about it on Reddit.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get it out there.
4chan, yep.
Yeah.
All those places we go and
these are my thoughts.
Know about. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
So the idea is that you don't think people should be forcibly exposed to particularly aggressive stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, not that I think there should be a law against it.
Yeah.
Because then the problem becomes well, what's the line?
Who decides? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So someone else might say, well, no, Freddy Krueger in any depiction is, satanic, and we don't want that, and blah, blah, blah. So I do understand that it can be, people might say it's a fine line. I don't think it's that fine a line. I think there's a big difference between the kind of things that we've talked about. But, I just think consider what you're showing to everybody else.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, Brian, we've been talking about the realms of fantasy here.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes these Halloween decorations get a little too real.
Do tell.
I don't know why you're laughing at this.
No, okay. I am ready to be sobered. Let's go.
All right. Well, first of all, what we're really talking about tonight is when actual dead human beings have been mistaken for a Halloween prop.
Yeah, I guess I can see this.
When people putting up a Halloween display have actually killed themselves.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, not so funny now, is it?
Your setup was still pretty funny.
I can't help it. Mr. Saturday Night. On October 26th, in the year of 2005, there was an she's probably known. She was an unnamed 42-year-old woman who decided to commit suicide. She went a quarter mile away from her house to a road that was like not heavily trafficked, but kind of like a residential road, basically, And there were some trees right off the road, and she hanged herself off the side of the road. And they think that she probably did this around 9 o'clock at night. But because it was October 26th, so close to Halloween, most people passing by just thought this was somebody's Halloween display. And it was across the street from, houses.
Sure.
So they just thought like, oh, someone wanted to be spooky and put this up. This was in the town of Frederica, Delaware.
Oh, yeah. Frederica, Delaware. We've all been there.
She was hanging about 15 feet off the ground. And as I said, people saw her in the night and everything, and even in the next morning in the light of day. But they were just like, oh, well, that's just some Halloween decoration. The first neighbors that report seeing it said they saw it around 7:30 in the morning. But even the neighbors said, oh, well, someone must have put that up as a Halloween decoration or some kind of prank. They're just pranking the neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
The police came at 11 o'clock in the morning. And they began to examine the scene and remove the body. And that's when they said, oh, this is not a prank. This is an actual dead 42-year-old woman.
Bad times.
So, I guess we don't even know the woman's name or her background or anything, but that's a really fucked up thing to do. I wonder if she did it thinking...
It's kind of shitty. I'm more surprised that someone who wanted to take their own life wanted to do it in such a public place, somewhere that they knew people would find them right away. I guess it's a little surprising.
Well, not right away, apparently, because it was almost 12 hours or more than 12 hours later.
Right, but just so exposed like that. And on another note, I don't know that I guess I don't really get the glorification isn't the word, but just the idea that someone who hanged themselves would be someone would think that was a Halloween display. I don't think that just overt death is a goofy Halloween decoration. And I know that it does exist and it is used that way, but that doesn't really That doesn't really feel great to me, I guess I'd say.
No, I agree with you, but we're going to continue reading several stories.
All right, well, let's hit it.
And many of them involve hangings.
Oh, boy. This is a heavy one, man.
Yeah. Well, actually, that is something. So let this be the PSA for this episode.
Okay.
Do not include a scene of you hanging or anybody hanging. We're going to get into exact reasons why as we go on, trust me. But I think you can pick up the general scent of what I'm saying here. It's a bad idea. No noose is a good noose.
Oh, boy.
Even as the witch finder, you know, the Puritans did hang the witches here in Massachusetts. We did not burn them. This is a blue state.
Yeah.
We are civilized here.
Not a great
Either
look.
hang them or
Not
or
a
crush
great
them
look
with
for
rocks.
us.
But, you know, it would be perhaps fitting and perhaps a fun Instagram picture for people to have me standing over them with a noose around their neck, right? But I would not do that. And also, I don't think I'd be allowed to do that because in the performer bylaws, you can't have weapons. I don't know if a noose would count as a weapon per se.
Why not?
But,
a garrote.
Yeah. But I wouldn't do that anyway because even just the chance that someone would, like if I had it, even if I tried to make it so that the noose couldn't tighten or whatever, you know someone's going to start fucking around.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to get sued.
Yep.
And I don't need that. Don't have nooses in your Halloween display.
Yeah. Like death. I understand death. It's like death is this ultimate spooky thing that we don't know about, and it's thought provoking, but it's not great to show. Like we know what happens. That's not adding a
Put
whole
up a
lot.
Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
That we get it, and it's not like it's spooky, and you know, like it's a reminder and everything, and it's going back to what the holiday was about originally and all that kind of stuff.
Harvest festival.
Yeah. But you don't need like a hanging guy and then like I don't know, a gunshot victim or like something like that.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of gunshot victims.
Oh boy.
Try not to laugh.
Oh boy.
Mustafa Mahmoud Zaid, he shot himself while sitting on the balcony of his apartment building. It was like one of those like mega apartment buildings with all the different units.
Sure.
And connected balconies, but you don't, like there's a wall between you and the next guy. But he shot himself in the eye while sitting on the balcony. And for 3 days, neighbors said, well, yeah, we did notice him, but he just looked like a Halloween display. So we just thought like that was his Halloween display. Brian's making a face.
I guess I'm just a little confused about the logistics here. So he's like up on some high floor or what? Or he's on the ground floor?
He's on the third floor balcony.
Okay. And so ostensibly people who live next door to him would look over maybe 20 feet and see this dead body and just be like, that's a thing?
They just thought it was a Halloween display.
Damn.
But then I wonder, like, who was the one who was like, you know what? It's been 3 days, and it looks like it's rotting.
Yeah, this is changing. This is very realistic. A little too realistic, perhaps. Yeah, that's pretty jacked up.
Yikes.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, so, well, and again, Brian, try not to laugh.
Don't tell me that.
But here's a woman who was murdered.
Okay.
I'm proud of you.
Really getting worse.
Yeah.
This is getting bad.
This actually is a very sad story. But the family even says that it's a story that should be told.
Yeah.
So,
all
in
right.
honor
Let's
of the family.
tell it.
There are going to be some names in this that I'm most likely not pronouncing correctly. It could be towns and it could be people.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to say I'm doing my best, but I guess my best would have been looking it up ahead of time and figuring it out. So I am doing it. I'll just say that. I'm doing it.
All right.
So there was a woman who, well, actually, let me start over. early morning. This is just a few years back. There's a guy walking his dog. And he looks over to this, like, fence, this barbed wire fence that's surrounding this plant, right? Industrial plant. And he sees what he thinks is a Halloween dummy up against the fence. Because it's bloody and its clothes are, ripped and all this. But one hand is up as if it's, like, waving. Looks like it's tied up on the fence as if it's waving out to people going by.
Okay.
But he's like, well, I don't know. This is a weird place for someone to do that. Let me take a closer look. So he goes up and actually discovers that this is a dead body. Now, it turns out to be a woman named Rebecca Cade. And her sleeve was caught on the barbed wire, and that's why it looked like one hand was up as if it was, posed to be waving out at people. And it was reported right away, but the initial reports, which I found, I remember when the case first broke, there were stories about it online. Now I've had trouble finding the initial reports, but I do remember that the initial reports suspected that it was a suicide.
Okay.
But that suspicion changed pretty quickly because they looked at the victim, and she had blunt force trauma marks on her head and on her face. And there was a bloody rock nearby. So then, for a moment, there was a fear that this was another victim of a suspected serial killer who they believed was active in this area.
Oh, man.
This was in a town called Chillicothe.
What country is this?
This is here in the United States.
Chillicothe?
Yeah.
What state is that in?
This is in Ohio.
Okay.
So this, they thought it was perhaps the work of the serial killer. But it didn't take too long before the police discovered that perhaps they had a different suspect. Police received a tip that Donnie Cockner Jr. may have some information about this apparent murder. The police went to his sister's home, and they began to ask her some questions. Now, she said that, yes, her brother had been to see her the night before, actually, and that he came in and he was muddy and covered in blood. He cleaned up in her bathroom, and then she helped him throw his soiled clothing into a neighbor's garbage can, and then they cleaned up the mess in her bathroom before she then drove him to a friend's house.
Jeepers.
So the police say, okay, we got to find this guy because he's definitely guilty.
It's very Mystic River.
So this is, he was arrested that same day. He's 27 years old. And as far as I know, this case has not actually gone to trial yet.
Oh, so this is recent.
Yeah. I think it was maybe 2015.
Oh, jeez. All right.
Yeah. It could even have been last year, but I think it was pretty recent at any event. But this is what the investigators are saying is most likely to have happened. However, I will take this time to remind everyone this is not a news program. Investigators believe that on the night of Cade's murder, Cockner and she were in a nearby field arguing. Cockner began chasing Cade, and that is when she got caught on the fence. It was believed that they had like a bit of a physical altercation beforehand. But now this is where I'm not sure what exactly they are saying happened. either he had beat her before and she just happened to get stuck on the fence, or he had beat her before and then she got stuck on the fence and then he came up and beat her to death with this rock. I think that's the more likely scenario in the investigators' story. But they think that she was actually alive when he left her, and that he left her to die, basically. But she was unconscious, and had been beaten so badly that she wasn't going to recover, and then she was left hanging from this fence by her sweatshirt.
Cripes.
Yeah. Told you, it's not all fun and games on this episode.
We gotta splice some.
I am going to end on a
dog photos in here.
Yeah, I am going to end on a not a funny story, but it's far enough back that we don't have to like feel bad.
Okay.
But it's not this story, unfortunately. So after all this, he then, of course, went to his sister's home, as she described, and luckily, she turned on him. I don't know what that situation was, because it seems like she was willing to help him. Maybe she was afraid of him. He's an intense looking guy.
Okay.
I'll put it that way. I probably will put a picture up on Spooky AS of his mugshot anyway.
Bad times.
It could be that, she was frightened and that's why she helped him, but she didn't really plan on helping him escape this murder rap or whatever.
Right.
If he did it, he is only
alleged.
Yeah, he has not gone to trial as far as I know. Could be wrong.
I gotta like that happens, and also there's a serial killer loose in your area. Bad times in Ohio.
Yeah, well, actually, because they're saying that over the past 16 months, that there had been numerous murders that could have been tied together, and so that's why they thought it's not confirmed, but they thought there might be a serial killer, and they thought this might be yet another victim, but that's not the case.
All right.
I mean,
still staying in Massachusetts, though.
Yeah, there still might be a serial killer, but it's not this guy.
Not going down there.
Now, Brian, I mentioned earlier that we don't care for the hanging scenes.
Don't like them.
And that we would talk more about some incidents that happened with those kinds of scenes. So here we are at that moment now.
All right.
Accidental hangings.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It's not unusual for hanging scenes to be part of a Halloween display or performance, whether that be like a haunted house or a haunted hayride, which is popular in these areas. Right. I'm trying to think if I remember the old Spooky World haunted hayride.
I never went on that.
I don't know if there was a hanging scene. I know there was definitely a scene where Jason jumped out of the back of a car, like the trunk of a car, and chased the hayride. That was pretty cool. And there was a barber who murdered people. I remember that.
Why is there never a dentist? People are so afraid of the dentist.
Well, Dr. Giggles.
Some
was he a
tooth
dentist?
Stuff. Who's Dr. Giggles? Who am I thinking of?
That was a movie.
Oh, I haven't had the pleasure.
Oh.
Maybe
I
it
remember
was.
the commercials, but I don't think I ever actually saw the movie. Maybe this year. Anyway, in 1990, the Chicago Tribune reports that there was a teenager who was pretending to be hung from the gallows as part of a Halloween hayride. Now, his name was Brian Jewell, and he was 17 at the time. He was in this gallows scene on the hayride. And this is a stunt. He wasn't doing anything that he wasn't supposed to be doing, as far as we know. There's a harness, that holds them up, and then you have one foot on the ground and one foot hanging off, and it looks like you're hanging, but you're not really hanging. And then, as the hayride passes by, you open your eyes and you give a little speech while you're hanging. Okay. That's what was supposed to happen. But one of the hayride drivers was driving through with about 40 people on the back of his truck, and he says he got to the scene and he saw Brian hanging there. His feet were touching the ground, but he did not recite his scripted lines, as the hayride went by. So thankfully, at least this driver had the good sense to mention this to somebody and not just be like, oh, he just must be really in character tonight. This is just a Halloween decoration. So he said, we should probably check on Brian. Unfortunately, he was in fact dead. And they say his feet were touching. I don't know if they mean like his whole feet were touching or just the toes were touching.
Yeah.
And the noose was supposed to be around his neck. This was something he'd done before. Like this was part of the show. So the noose was supposed to go around his neck, but it wasn't supposed to tighten it. And somehow, on this time, it tightened.
So what? Suspicious.
Well, the police said there's no evidence of foul play, if that's what you're thinking.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But, again, this points to do not put your head
the hanging thing
in a noose, even as a joke, even as part of a show, even if you're Alice Cooper. Just stop. Just don't do it. Find other things.
Yep.
Because this is not the only story. Here's one from the Los Angeles Times. There's a 15-year-old boy, and his name is Anthony Autumn. This was reported by the Los Angeles Times, but it actually happened in Charlotte, North Carolina. And this actually happened in 1990, October 1990, the same time that Brian Jewell was accidentally hanged.
Bad year.
Yeah. So this 15-year-old is holding a Halloween party in their home, the family home. And they say, hey, here's a good idea. Let's set up a haunted house in the basement, and we'll have our friends over, Halloween party, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Sounds good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he decides
they did not heed your advice
to make a noose, and he puts himself in it, and somehow the noose tightened around his neck.
Yep.
And
don't do it.
And this, happens more recently too. Let's fast forward to October of 2001. This time, unfortunately, we're getting even younger. We went 17, 15, now we're at 14.
Dude.
This is a boy named Caleb. And Caleb was working at a haunted hayride in Sparta, Michigan. And his job was, as the hayride passed, to jump out of the woods and scare the passersby.
Okay.
But according to coworkers, Caleb, quote, felt awkward simply jumping out of the woods to scare passersby. So he decided to remove one of the hanging skeletons from the gallows scene and put his own neck in the noose.
They should have immediately said, that's a terrible idea. Yeah. Don't do that.
Well, apparently he had pulled the branch of a tree where it was hanging from. He'd pulled that down to remove the skeleton. And I guess the thinking in his mind was that he would be heavy enough that the branch wouldn't go back up, and so he'd be in no danger of hanging. Apparently,
didn't work out.
That was not the case. He was not heavy enough, and the branch did whip back up and began to choke him. When he started scrambling to get the double knot-tied rope off of his neck, the fellow coworkers thought he was acting. So they didn't immediately rush to his aid.
That's pretty bad.
And his mother says, I think that they thought he was safe because his feet were still touching the ground.
Yep.
So his feet were on the ground, but the tree went up and it tightened the noose around your neck. Well, you can definitely choke to death with both feet on the ground. There's no law that says,
I just can't. I don't know. I've never worked at a haunted house, so maybe there is some sort of rush associated with like doing anything you can to get the scare, but I just can't imagine even thinking of that without taking every last precaution to like make sure it's not even close to real.
You're also saying this as a mostly mature
Thank you.
gentleman of a certain age. You're not a 14-year-old boy working at a haunted house.
It's true, but
yes.
I like to think that when I was 14, I probably would have been scared shitless of like, what if this goes wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably would have too, but on the other hand,
I guess we were pretty dumb.
Yeah, and probably it was a heat of the moment thing. Like he probably wasn't planning this, weeks ahead of time. He was probably just like, this is kind of dumb jumping out of the woods. I wish I could do something that was really scary. I know.
It's so bad.
Well, I told you it gets too real. Now we're gonna fast forward again.
Okay.
And this time, it's September of 2013. And we're in Kentucky. There's a boy named Jordan Moreland, and he is 16 years old. He must have been super into Halloween because it's September, so it's a little early.
Yeah, I'm already upset about this. It's too early.
No, well, see, I understand. So I'm with you, and so this case touches my heart even more because this guy was an enthusiast in getting everything out there early. Now, he had been hanging decorations all day, and he just returned home from helping his mom do the laundry when he got this idea. He said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to prank my little sister and my mom by putting the noose that I just hung up as part of my Halloween decoration. I'm going to put that around my neck and pretend to be dead when they come by. And then I won't be dead, and they'll laugh, and we'll say, haha, Halloween in September.
Again, just like any possible payoff compared with what can go horribly wrong.
This is what we're telling you. This is our PSA for the year.
God.
No nooses in your Halloween displays. So he does this, and of course, it does not end well for him. The coroner said that when he placed the noose around his neck, probably he became disoriented because the noose tightened and just shut off the oxygen to his brain. Now, I don't know about you, Brian, but I have been choked out before.
I have not.
By Rowdy Roddy Piper. It's a whole thing.
All right.
I believe I already told that story. Go back and listen to whatever episode that was on. But Rowdy Roddy Piper did choke me out in the sleeper hold. And the thing is, when you get something that tight around your neck, it is almost instant. That, like, you can't get air. Like, just immediately. So I would imagine that, yes, he was disoriented. And they said it was probably only 20 or 30 seconds that he had this noose around his neck, because unlike these other stories, the younger sister discovered him, and the mom rushed out to cut him down, but she was unable to remove him by herself. I don't know exactly how he got down, but they did get him down, and he was still alive, but now his brain hadn't had this oxygen for a while, right? So he went into a coma. Unfortunately, while he was in this coma, his organs started to fail, and he died about 12 hours after the incident.
Man. I'm very uncomfortable right now.
Well, again, I think, this technically comedy podcast, but
very technically.
Yeah. I mean,
look, get ready to turn into Eric's podcast for a few chuckles, and oh my God.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you have laughed at several inappropriate
that's
things
kind
tonight.
of my brand. I don't
Whistling in the dark.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, again, part of the thing is if you have a voice, you got to use it, right? So people who listen to this show are probably Halloween enthusiasts for the most part. And what I want to say to these people is enough with the nooses and the hanging scenes, because even if you put it up thinking this is a decoration, it's not meant for anyone to put their head in. You don't know if some kid's going to come along and be like, oh, look at me, guys. It's so funny. I'm hanging and I'm dead. But then, like, they really do turn up to be hanging and dead.
Yep. It happens.
So just don't do it.
Don't do a thing. Create something better, more interesting. Come up with a new kind of zombie head-eating monster or something.
Yeah, use monsters.
Yeah, monsters are better
aren't
anyway.
Real.
Yeah.
You're not going to actually, like, wake up a Godzilla. And, well, that's it. Well, never mind. I won't talk about that.
Your whole Godzilla rant?
I do have a Godzilla rant.
I bet you do.
I do. But
All
I'll
right,
get into
some
that
other time.
Another day. Specifically a Godzilla Halloween rant. But anyway.
Okay.
Are you ready for the story that I said was long enough ago that
less macabre and
yeah,
maybe slightly less evil? Yeah.
Yes,
the man
who died more than 100 years ago.
I mean, it's still not great. Someone's dying. Still not great.
He was also a criminal, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just go ahead.
I'm trying to help you out here.
Boy.
Okay. This is a very famous case. I'm sure that a lot of people have heard about this one before. This is the outlaw in the funhouse.
I don't think so, but maybe.
All right. Well, here's what the story is. In 1976, there was a TV show on called The $6 Million Man.
Sure.
And, you know, this is before our time, but I've heard of the show. I've never actually seen it. But, you know, it was like an action-adventure type show.
Steve Austin.
Yeah.
We can rebuild them. We have the technology.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was before, I don't know what I was going to say, but yes. So they were filming an episode that ended up being called Carnival of Spies. And
great title.
It was not a Halloween episode or anything like that, but it was set...
It's a circus episode.
No, it was set in an amusement park.
Yeah.
So instead of like building a set and everything, they went to a real life amusement park. They went to New Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California.
Okay.
So they're getting it ready and everything, and they're filming inside a funhouse for one scene. And the director's like, well, because there's a gallows scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the director's like, well, some of this doesn't look right. There's a corpse over there hanging from the gallows. I don't like it. Can you get it out of here? It was like painted day glow, and, you know, it was glowing under the black lights, I guess, and all that stuff. So the prop man goes to move it. But when he goes to move it, an arm falls off.
Oh, man.
And it's got human bones.
Don't like it. Don't like it.
So he goes to the director and says, here's the thing.
That is a hell of a
that Dayglow corpse you just told me to move, that's like a dude.
That's a human person.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you were going for. I'm guessing not. Brutal. So he must have been there for a while, huh?
Well, so the thing is, so medical examiners came in, right? And they said, like, look, we got this dead guy here. What's going on? So they looked at him and they're like, well, okay, first of all, there's all sorts of layers on him, including this phosphorescent paint, because he's been in this funhouse.
What is happening? Oh my God. So he's been part of this exhibit for decades or whatever?
Yeah. So they also...
Gnarly.
They look in his mouth.
Well, like you do.
And in the corpse's mouth, they find a 1924 penny.
Interesting.
And a ticket to something called the Museum of Crime in Los Angeles.
Oh,
so these things are just in the mouth.
Yeah.
So they send it off to, and like basically they have to put together all these clues about like where he's from, because they find out that he was shot. And they're looking at the bullet and the casing of the bullet, and they're looking at this, ticket to this Los Angeles Museum of Crime, and they're piecing all these things together, and they finally figure out who this person is. It's actually a man by the name of Elmer McCurdy.
Okay.
Now, he was shot to death because he and some co-conspirators had robbed a train of its shipments, which totaled $46. This happened
Not worth it.
in 1911.
Yeah.
So when he was shot to death, the coroner used arsenic to, embalm the corpse, I guess. And he did what they used to do in the Old West, where they put the body on display. Like standing up against the wall.
Woohoo!
And he would
That's
charge...
a whole other episode right there.
He would charge people $1 to come and see the body and... to see the body.
That's insane.
And he put a title on it, and the title of this corpse was "The Bandit Who Wouldn't Give Up."
God damn it. All right.
Now, this guy had been doing this for years. Unspecified years in the report that I have, but for years.
Sounds like a peach.
And this other guy shows up with the police. And he says, "Listen, I am Elmer McCurdy's long-lost brother from California.
He was not.
And I'm going to take this body with me to California, and I'm going to give it a proper burial, and you're going to stop showing it like you've been doing for the past number of years. And I got the sheriff here. They know I'm legit, so I'm taking this." So, of course, as you predicted, Brian, this man was not, in fact, Elmer McCurdy's brother. He was just some guy.
I am shocked.
And more than some guy, he actually was another person who was going to charge people to look at this.
There aren't enough dead guys around. I gotta steal yours. God.
I'm not sure if this is the guy or if he ended up selling it, but this might be the guy who owned that museum.
Yeah.
That the ticket
the
was
crime
found
museum.
in. The crime museum. And he had some wax figures of other outlaws like Jesse James and stuff. But this, of course,
the
was
genuine
the real
article.
And apparently people would drop things into its mouth because we had the penny from 1924. And remember, the guy was killed in 1911.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the ticket to the museum itself. So presumably this is just people walking by being like, I'm going to throw some shit in this dead guy.
That's what they probably knew, too. They were like, no, I know it's a real body. Just going to put a penny in there. How about that, then?
Well, through all this, the body became mummified.
Weird.
So
that can just happen without intentionally doing it?
No, because they were doing different things to try to preserve the body.
Right.
So it had the arsenic in it, and then they put like wax over it, and I don't know exactly what else, but they ended up making a mummy. So then it goes into storage, and people don't really know like exactly what happens to it from there, but it eventually finds its way to the New Pike Funhouse, where they're like, oh, okay,
somehow
we got that new corpse prop. We bought it from some storage unit that we got on Storage Wars or whatever.
So gross.
Paint them Dayglow colors, put them under the black light, and put him in the hanging scene.
He seems unnecessarily heavy. What's going on?
He wasn't actually. I don't know how much I don't have a lot of experience handling like full size corpse props, but he was only like attitude. 50 pounds, I guess.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, he'd been mummified.
Yeah. We made a mummy by accident.
Yeah.
Come see our thing.
So when they found out it was an actual human body, eventually he was taken back to his home state and given a proper burial, and apparently 300 people showed up for this burial.
Closed casket.
Yeah.
Don't want to see.
But that's the story.
Distant relative in
Elmer,
Dayglow colors.
Elmer McCurdy.
That's crazy. Although the more like you listen to the more you hear about history, it's like, yeah, people used to do some terrible, terrible things. Just especially showcasing just live humans, dead humans, the whole freak show angle. That
Yeah. Well, we still do it. We just put it on TLC now.
yeah.
It's not.
I feel like I feel like, we're still terrible and depraved, but I think I'd rather have what we have now compared to an actual human body in the goddamn whatever it was. Whew.
Yeah, but on the other hand, then you have things like what's that called? The body.
Banjo Minnow?
No. The body exhibit that's been going around.
Body Worlds?
Is that what it's called? Where it's like real human cadavers and like cut up and like.
Yeah.
It's fucked up. I went to the one when it was at the Museum of Science. This was the Museum of Science.
Yep.
And the thing is, like, it's not just like it would be one thing if it was just like a cadaver cut up so you could see layers or like whatever, see what's going on inside. They were like, I want to say artistically, but I'm going to say that with quotations around it. There was one that was like a ballerina.
Yeah.
But her tutu was the skin from her stomach and thighs.
On some level, I can actually really appreciate that. It's just if you're gonna do something fucked up, dive in.
Yeah,
that's
and that's
crazy.
just one example. Like there were other ones that were like like that too. And I'm just like, who's checking on this guy? Because he's got some stuff going on.
Yeah, that's a thing. I guess I didn't realize those were actually real.
Yeah.
But also, I never actually saw the exhibit. So
my ex and I went, and we didn't go. I can't imagine. I don't remember the exact circumstances, but I can't imagine we were like, "Hey, we got to go see Body Worlds." Like I'm into some things, but that's not one of them.
Yeah.
As I discussed on a recent episode about necrophilia, I got kinks, but that ain't one.
Nah. Which is a good thing, because how lucky we are that we're not into seriously illegal, depraved shit.
All right, Brian, we've been talking about this for quite a while.
Too long, I would argue.
It feels like midnight.
Oh man.
So it's not. It's actually 8:30, but we're still gonna wrap it up. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, again, go ahead, rate, review, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or iHeartRadio or YouTube or wherever you happen to be listening to this from. Don't forget to share the show with your friends. I super appreciate that. And of course, check out the website spookyassshit.com, and find us on Facebook, facebook.com/spookyas. Until next time, no more nooses.
No nooses.
And don't be afraid.
Whew. Let me take a shower.